What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. We are talking about formwork today for another Formwork Friday, and we have two pyros. And you would think today's gonna be a forehand formwork. Actually, no. Surprisingly, we have two pyros, and we are not talking about our forehand. We're not necessarily talking about our backhand. While those will come into play, it's based off of what you should be looking for when you try to pick up a disc, because you got fission, you got proton, you got plasma, you have neutron, so many different plastics. What should we be looking for and why? And plastics can fly the same, and plastics can fly very differently depending on how you throw them. So we're going to start off here on hole number 9. I'm going to throw a little forehand, proton, and fission. Kind of what you expect from a pyro. It's going to go up there, it's going to hook, it's going to skip left. What happens if you throw a fission pyro? Saw a lot more play out of that, a lot straighter of a throw. And why is that? It's because of the weight distribution. And when I go pick these up, I'll show you exactly what we're talking about, because weight distribution plays way more of an impact on how a disc is going to fly than people necessarily give it credit for. And it's why premium flies the way it does, and it's why base plastic or putter plastic flies the way that it does. It's because of weight distribution. So let's pick these up. We'll head to the next tee pad. When you look at both of these, obviously, proton is their translucent, clear plastic. But this is not just proton, it's prism proton, hence the giant prism in the middle. And you can actually see light and objects through the rim as well, because the rim at this point is proton. So the rim is proton, the flight plate is proton. What does that mean? This is entirely proton, so the weight distribution should be pretty even throughout the entire disc. Then you take this. Fission is their least dense flight plate plastic. So what the allure of fission is, you get a much higher density in the rim than you do in the flight plate. And when you grab any putter, you grab a putter plastic, you grab a premium plastic of the same mold, they're going to fly differently depending on how you throw them because of the weight distribution. If you put a lot more weight in the middle, that means it's going to be easier to to get it moving. But the weight is right here, the gyroscope is right here, so it's not going to really do much. That's what we're going to see more from the proton, is that when we're imparting spin, this is going to fly pretty normal. The only way that we're able to get it to be torque resistant is because it is entirely proton, and because it's all proton, it's going to be their most torque resistant option until you throw it on a backhand. And then their most torque resistant option actually becomes the fission pyro, something that I didn't realize until I threw this shot. I threw that shot and I realized that the harder I threw this on a backhand, the more stable it became, because I was giving it way more spin the harder I was throwing it, so there was more gyroscopic effect pushing it to the sides and holding it in place. pedal and stay upright on. The big wheels, it's because the weight is a lot further out. The weight is not necessarily further out, but it really kind of is, because Proton is more dense than Fission. So that was very long-winded. I'm gonna throw another forehand here, and then hopefully we can warm up my hand enough to throw some backhands, because it is currently 23 degrees. But you'll see that this one, because the Pyro itself is a very torque resistant and overstable mold, it handles the forehand really well, whereas this one doesn't, because it's not a torque resistant plastic, but if you spin it, it gets more weight, so it actually adds a little bit more stability. I threw that on Anheuser, and I'm going to throw this pretty flat. I threw that flat, and we got the drift. I threw the Proton on Anheuser, and we got the drift. So, on a forehand, the Fission Pyro is a flip up to flat forehand. Amazing disc. On a backhand, let's go see what it does. So, as far as backhands go, Proton Pyro is a Proton Pyro. So a Proton Pyro is going to do what a Proton Pyro is going to do. However, we saw that this is definitely not as torque resistant on a forehand. It definitely wants to be a little bit straighter, a little bit pushier, a little bit glidier. What happens on the backhand? We have a pretty decent amount of tailwind. Let's throw the Proton, see what that does. And that does what Proton Pyro does, right? Now let's throw the Fission Pyro, and I'm gonna throw this on Anheuser because it's so stable. Don't believe me? Watch this. Yeah, lower, more driven, so it's gonna be that lower liner drive. It's not gonna get necessarily the big flex or the big dump. I'm gonna have to throw it on 18 to truly show, because tailwind, nose up, kind of dropped it. I wanted you to see it finish. It didn't have enough hang time on this hole. Let's go to 18. Hopefully we'll get to see it finish, because the finish of a Fission Pyro is something unlike any other Pyro I've ever seen. So what the weight distribution is doing for this Fission Pyro that makes it different than the weight distribution for this is, while this one is pretty typical. Basically, it's essentially a solo mold based off of the plastic. That's how the weight distribution is going to be laid out. Whereas this one has the wide diameter of a mid-range, so it has the glide and control of a mid-range, but it has the weight distribution further out, more akin to a driver, which is why a lot of times with premium plastic drivers, especially the C-Line or the Champion, that clear translucent plastic very typically tends to have a lot of dome and pop. It's because that area of the plastic is a good bit less dense than the plastic on the rim. And while this is a 5-speed, it's a very wide 5-speed, and with the weight distribution as far out as it is, it gives it the flight of a fairway driver, which is kind of incredible. Let's go Proton and then Fission one more time. We're on hole 18. It's something I've never seen a mid-range that flies like a Fission Pyro does. They're pretty typical, just super straight, dump. Now I'm gonna try to get this on the Anheuser again. Watch when it fades. We need a little bit more Anheuser than the Proton. Watch this fade. It's just gonna dive. And not only did it just kind of dive, it is right next to the Mando pole, which is $395. I don't remember the last time I threw a mid-range $395, but I can throw a Fission Pyro $395 with a tailwind. Why? Because it has the wide rim, the glide, and it has the weight distribution out there. So, am I telling you that you should go out and buy a whole bunch of Fission discs because you'll have better weight distribution to make your disc supposedly fly a little bit further? No, that's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying pick the disc and pick the plastic that is right for you and right for the situation, because there are times when I'm going to throw this Fission Pyro, but there are also times when I'm going to throw the Proton Pyro, because sometimes I just don't need the fairway driver shot out of a mid-range body. I need the mid-range shot out of the mid-range body, right? So pick the right plastic, and when you're in the store the next time, feeling discs, looking at discs to try to pick up, try to feel the flight plate. On a lot of putters, the flight plate is going to be very, very thick, which gives it the easy control and spin right into the basket, but you try to throw it, obviously it doesn't work out as well as something with the weight distribution out a little bit further. So focus on that next time you're in the store. Try to find and feel what feels really good, and also keep in mind that the more weight you have out to the sides, the more the disc is going to want to do what the rim shape is. Hopefully you enjoy content like this. If so, please make sure to like the video. If you want to see new stuff, make sure to comment all of that down below. Please make sure to subscribe. It helps you guys out with these subscriber-only giveaways. Definitely helps me out as well. And until next time, see you out on the course.